Hey everyone, and welcome to the Level Design Lobby. And this time we're going to be discussing and breaking down the remake of Resident Evil 3. Hey everyone, I hope you're well, playing and making the games that you all love. You're joining me, your host, Max Pears. And whatever time you're listening to this, morning, afternoon, or night, I hope you're having an amazing time and you're all staying safe. So thank you all very much for joining me. It is great to be chatting to you all as usual. Business rolls on. And for us, great news was that Resident Evil 3 launched just over last week. And Final Fantasy VII is coming out this Friday, which I'm super excited about. I've got the day booked off work, and I'm just very happy to be able to sit down and go through all of that. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. But as I mentioned, this week's episode is actually going to be discussing Resident Evil 3. For those of you who haven't played the demo or played the game, I do recommend it. I'm very much impressed by this. I didn't know what I was going to think. Now, to stay off, I didn't play the original Resident Evil 3. I played Resident Evil 2 on PlayStation 1, and that scared the hell out of me. I definitely was not at the right age to play that game for sure. So after that, I very much avoided Resident Evil for a while. But everyone I know really enjoyed this, and obviously the Nemesis himself is definitely always quoted as one of the most scariest things in video games for a very long time. So to me, I was very excited to get my hands and try this out. Now, I've been told that there are differences, so I cannot compare in terms of the original versus the remake, the differences. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about in terms of what we can learn from its level design, its overall tone setting, and all these features that help make it a very, very good game, in my opinion. I've really enjoyed this, and with all of the quarantine still going on, I think it's a good game to really take advantage of and play. And also for me, I've been looking for a game that I could finish in kind of one sitting. I haven't finished the game yet, but I'm very close to the end now. And it's nice to do that. It's been way too long since I've been able to just sit down and play. So okay, now we're going to go break in. So we were talking about a few things. I want to talk about the actual opening sequence. I thought that was very engaging and really enjoyed that. I wanted to mention then the type of levels it switches through. You'll see that there's multiple different types of levels overall that it goes through. Obviously, we'll be breaking down the Nemesis himself and how that kind of works in the pop-up in his chase sequences. And also the environmental storytelling. There's a lot to break down with theirs, and it's a great, being a game of the genre of horror, there's a lot that you can obviously do to help sell the story, and I do think that's really important for us as level designers as well. Okay, now the first one is the opening sequence. And this one I really enjoyed because it caught me off guard, because it starts off in first-person mode. It's very similar, very reminiscent of Resident Evil 7. No, I did not complete Resident Evil 7 because that scared the hell out of me. And if you didn't play it in VR, wow, that was extra scary in VR. But it starts off in that way, where you're in first person. I like that it's very grayscale, so the colours worn away. And I thought that was a nice kind of... I mean, maybe this wasn't why they did it, but I got a few reasons from it just when looking at it. That is kind of like an homage to the old sort of horror films in black and white, also to that of throwback to, the old times. Now, obviously, in the 1990s, we had coloured TV and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So we had a lot of cool things, but I liked that. And I completely forgot about this, I guess because there hasn't been a Resident Evil 1, proper remake, like there has in terms of Resident Evil 2 or 3. Is that obviously Jill had gone through the traumatic experience of doing and going through the very first game, of being in the mansion where the first encounter with the T-virus and zombies actually took place. And so it was very nice that they were showing the mental damage that this has done and it has consumed Jill. So not only is it in that of the way that when you wake up you see this dream of Jill turning into a zombie, but also in terms of when you look around her apartment, it's an absolute mess because it seems that her only focus is on actually finding out more about the T-Virus, Umbrella Corporation. You know, she's got the traditional, you can tell this person's a detective or caught up in a conspiracy board with red string leading everywhere. But it was really interesting to see, like, again, the character's mood. Now, this is environmental storytelling, but seeing how it very much consumed that of the player. And the fact that you're also in first person for all of this sequence, I think was an even bigger addition to this, because the fact that you're putting yourself in in Jill's shoes. I like the fact that the apartment obviously feels much smaller and feels more intimate because of that, and you get to see again how messy her place is, how much space these conspiracies, this investigation is taking up. So it gives that very sense of claustrophobic, so you feel very tight-knit. I think it also throws you off, because coming off Resident Evil 2, the remake, you know, it's straight into third person. That was a very good opening as well. And I think I also like that this is very different to Resident Evil 2 Remake's opening as well. You could play these and get a different sense of the characters. You know, when it comes to either Claire or Leo in the gas station, they're very much trying to figure out what's going on, a small little area they're trying to investigate. And then compared to Jill, who's in the thick of it, and we're in first person, we're in their apartment, it shows, again, different kind of mentality, different kind of state of where they all are in terms of when the, you know, catastrophe happens of the zombie apocalypse. So I think that one was a very good choice for it. I think taking the risk, and I definitely imagine that you're building a space for a different camera perspective, getting a camera system set up in a detailed way, so when you look down, obviously you see Jill, the shadows, all of that. I'm sure that took a bit of time to set up. So yeah, I think there's a brilliant way to get the player hooked. You know, obviously I'd be more interested after them doing this. Is that a hint for, you know, Resident Evil 8, for example? Is that going to be a hint on where they're going to take the series and the franchise that they want to later, in terms of, is it all in first person moving forward? Or with the success of 2 and 3, will they make it into third person? Then we have the transition into third person with this. And I'm quite interested if, when they did the transition, did they load you into a new level? Because obviously metric-wise, third to first person is very different, you know? So I think, I imagine they switched the level, or they redid the level. I don't know. I'm just guesstimating. I think it'd be a very interesting one to ask, to find out, because, yeah, like I said, metrics in first and third person are very noticeable and very different, yeah. Yeah, so, and then what I like in this somber moment is then when it kicks right in to the Nemesis' first appearance. That was a really big, you know, wow moment for me. As I said, I didn't play the original, so I intend to go watch walkthroughs of how the original was done. But yeah, just how his entrance is, and you can just sense already how powerless Jill is against the Nemesis, and I think that's a really smart moment. And also the contradiction of the pacing. We spoke about pacing many times on this show, many times in the Discord, that there's a lot of importance in setting out the pacing as a level designer. So going from these quiet, somber moments where you're getting a chance to see what's going on in Jill's head, to then have to make a massive run for it. And I tell you what I do really like as well with these sequences, which really impressed me, is because a lot of times you very, very much feel the disconnection between that of the cutscenes versus the actual gameplay, where the character gets hurt in, say, a cutscene, but then as soon as you take control, they're very much A-okay. So what I like is you actually do start on different level of damage when you when you come out of these cutscenes. So you'll find that you are constantly beat up and battered every time that you run into that of an encounter with the nemesis in a cutscene. And yeah, just it connects the game, I believe, much better when you see that. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I think that's definitely a way to help keep the player hooked in to the actual moment and make sure that they feel less of a disconnect, because obviously you take the control away from the player. Yeah, so I think that's a great way to do that. So obviously I rate the opening sequence very highly. I think if you're looking to get inspiration on how to start a game, obviously this won't translate to every game, but I do think that's one that you should check out, because to me, it really hooked me. It really set the pace of the game. It really set that, this character, this nemesis, was going to play a significant role in the game and also in the life of Jill. So yeah, a very good game, very good starting place for this. Now this then leads us to the actual next part. Sorry, let me just check this all off my little checkboard so I know where I am in terms of my progress, what we want to talk about.
At Level Design Lobby, we believe everybody has a story to tell. Hobbyist or student, freelancer or veteran, we made it our mission to unite those who share our passion for creating and developing great games. Thanks to our generous Patreon backers, we've been able to do just that. So if you've already pledged your support, thank you. If not, you too can ensure the future of Level Design Lobby, helping us to create even more exciting content, collaborations, interviews, and much more. With awesome perks and rewards, whether you're a seasoned professional or just getting started, you're sure to find something for you. Want to share tips, tricks, and advice with passionate, like-minded developers? Our awesome community Discord has you covered. Fancy practicing your level design, creating strong portfolio content, and having fun? Then try our level design weekends. Or perhaps you want to individually discuss your work, hone your skills, or level up your career? Then consider our one-on-one mentorships. If you share our vision, then go to patreon.com/Level Design Lobby for more information and to pledge your support. Thank you.
The next one is their level design itself. Now you'll get a sense of this if you played their demo as well. Sorry, I'm just going to bring up my little reference videos just so I can make sure I'm saying everything that I do correct. There we go. So yes, if you played your demo, you will have got a taste of this as well. And that is generally, they kind of have three different types of levels actually. They have the hub area, which is the downtown in Resident Evil 3. You have the more linear sections, whether that's either in the sewers or where the power generator is. And the third type is the spaces for the boss battles as well. So yeah, there's quite a bit of different variety. But the one that's the most impressive to me, and I think the one that is very cool to see, and I wonder how far you can push this idea, especially in a horror game, is using these hub areas. So when you play the demo and the main game, it's in the downtown area of Raccoon City. What I like about this is that it's all about kind of backtracking on yourself and opening areas. Now, Bloodborne and From Software games do a great example of constantly revisiting and reopening areas, showing that you can use them in many different and exciting ways, or should I say, how you connect them in ways so that way you can unlock shortcuts and build upon that. But what I think I like the most about this is the fact that because it's quite a small hub area, it really helps to produce the mental map for that of the player. So that way that they are aware of how the world, this downtown area connects together. I really did enjoy seeing that, because you start out coming out of the train station and then you've got to go all around to get different elements. The way that they do this is very gate and key. In order for you to progress, you must find something that is to remove something that's blocking your path, and so on and so forth. It's very much you have an overarching objective, but you've probably got to go through 2 to 3 mini gates before you even reach that. So, I mentioned before that also it's about unlocking different paths. So one of the first things you can do is you can kick down a ladder for yourself, and this will then allow you to move through different spaces quicker than going through that on ground level. And you've also got different gates that you can open, etc., which will play a big part in kind of unlocking all of these spaces that you'll use. I think that this was really nice. I do recommend if you're looking for that. And the importance of hub areas, again, is the connectivity, opening up spaces with shortcuts, as well as clear signposting. They do, and because it's a rather linear game, the way that they help guide the player is very cool. You've got a lot of use of yellows, obviously. You also have that of... what else do we have? Sorry. A lot of lights and shadows that they cast, which is fantastic. It does a lot of great jump scares with the zombies moving around. I like that. All of this to help, again, establish. They've got a fair few signposts as well. If you look around, there's, I think, is it called like Uncle Toys, which is their toy manufacturer, and that this can open up, and you can see this area, this icon of this kind of giant bobblehead all through. Now, the thing is, though, with any kind of landmark, is getting the player to look up is always a struggle. So make sure you got to be careful in terms of how do you get players to look up. It's it's a difficult challenge, but they do what they tend to do a lot with it. Is it's about how they raise and lower areas of their level. So, say for example, when you first come into where the Uncle Toys I mentioned is, unless you choose to look up, you're not going to notice the giant bobblehead that I mentioned. But just opposite it is some stairs down to this donut factory, this donut diner, which you can see because that's lower, and you can see they have this giant, I believe it's like a rocket and donuts as their kind of, sign. So you know that. And then also, when you turn around from there, now that we're at a lower point, we've got a clearer shot of the Uncle Toys there. So they do a really nice job, and but they have a lot of these. They really embellish the signs of the stores. And so the reason being is that for, again, helping with signposting and also mental mapping. We know that we just spoke about how they combine that with their levels as well. When you go down the stairs, you head to the donuts and the crab store. You can see a lot of that because you slightly start at a raised area, so you get a view of that. And then you'll also know that eventually the donut store is how you can move through the 2 areas that you go through. Again, showing how they connect, it is through that donut store. Again, you start to build this mental map over and over, and then you start to reveal different sections by their levels too, by raising and lowering parts. So they're 2 very important things you can take away in helping players create a mental map, and also kind of layering information as well as revealing information. Now, the next thing is how they color code their devices, or should we say their gameplay elements. Similar to that of Uncharted, and I think this is just going to become a global thing, or pretty much is a global thing at this point, is that yellow seems to be very much the color of traversal, of indication moving forward. So they use that for their ladders, but they also use it for loot as well. If you find crates with yellow tape wrapped around them, this will indicate to the player that there is some useful loot. And then if they have explosives, they stick to the tradition of red barrels and also other red elements. So the color coding is very simple but important. And when I say simple, I don't mean like, it's basic, as in they've kept it simple for a reason. They've kept it clear, so that way all of that is readable for you as the player. If I see something yellow, it either means there's loot or there's a way for me to move through this space. If I see something red, I should probably shoot it when enemies are near, because it's going to help me in that of combat. Which I think is, again, really important, because especially so when you're communicating with game design, I think this is a really good tip to mention this, right? You need to help game design figure out how to signpost their devices. They will think of a starting point on it, because obviously gameplay designers are very much focused on making sure that their elements are used, right? But what you tend to find when working with your gameplay designers is they will test a lot of it in a gym, right? And for those of you who don't know what a gym is basically a giant kind of space, this level, this small level, where you put elements such as whether it be, it can be used for many things, different animation, gameplay type, enemies, AI, all of these. But basically you build out these small levels for them to test out their own equipment, their own gameplay. So they'll keep this in mind. But what tends to happen, and we've all seen this, is that they'll keep something, they'll plan something, and it looks fine in this gym because it's just made of probably your level design kit pieces, right? But when art gets in, obviously they're making sure, as they should do, their objective is to make sure that all of this looks pretty and make sure it looks realistic in context with your level. But because of that, there comes a lot of noise, right? There's a lot of clutter over. Not clutter in terms of a bad thing, but as in they're cluttering the scene because they're making it realistic. And because of that, you need to communicate with gameplay that these design elements need to be able to be read. And this will come down to multiple things. It's not just you. Lighting will obviously help with that as well. Communicating with artists so they know what's important in terms of what you're after, and that this is needed because this is what we need to use the space for. All of that helps to make sure that this space is understandable and readable. So yes, communication with your team is very much important with all of that. So yes, make sure that you do communicate. And it seems like they did a great job of communicating with their team too. What are we going to move on to next as we wrap up about the hub levels there? So yeah, I really enjoyed the little hub sections of Raccoon City. As I said, they have different spaces in terms of different areas. As I mentioned, there's some more linear sections like the sewers where they are trying to change the pace up again. The hub area is more about exploration and seeing the damage, obviously, within the city, as well as you trying to figure out how to use what you have there to get going with the substation. And yeah, it's a different type of pace, which I like. And again, I think that's also another thing before I move on to the next topic, is that by switching up these different styles of levels, again, it works so well with pacing. And also it has a different feeling for the player. So that way players know that there is a difference, right? Players are aware that there's a different kind of objective. For you, when you come through these spaces in the hub area, it's to find stuff. It's to explore in order to find out more items, as well as, so we're seeing the damage that Raccoon City is under. Compared to that, the sewers, which is to lose the nemesis and also just get out as quick as possible. So that's why it feels a bit more linear. I personally prefer the hub spaces to the more linear spaces, personally. There's nothing wrong with them being linear. I just prefer the openness. I think it really just is a nice feel to it. Okay, another thing I want to talk about with the level design is the environmental storytelling. Now, this here, the whole horror genre lends itself to environmental storytelling so well. And these guys really take advantage of it in their levels. I really have enjoyed... So a couple of things. Now, I did a tweet about 2 weeks ago, maybe even a little further back, I played the Final Fantasy VII demo, and we talk about spaces, leading spaces off to where the player may find a dead end, but they find loot. But what I also like with Resident Evil, compared to, say, that of Final Fantasy, is that there is context to where a lot of their loot has been placed. When you find ammo, it makes a bit more context. Same with that of these herbs. You find them kind of more stored away in places in whether it be on a desk of someone because it looks nice with all these other pottery of flowers, or that of ammo where it looks like this last stand took place in this barricade, or where two people choose to commit suicide in order to end the suffering. All of this kind of makes contextual sense. Now, you're not going to get this chance to do it with every game. Like I said, JRPGs aren't going to do that as much as, say, something like an action game, just because of the more fantastical nature of JRPGs. And it also depends on your loot system, right? If you've just got one box or like 5 boxes for loot, that's not gonna give you much time in terms of, not time, but helps to give context to the space more. But if you have more different loot elements, we have, for example, with Resident Evil, you've got ammo, you've got herbs, you've got all of these different types of ammo, you've got different kind of boxes you can find jewels in, all of these. And even some of the key items that you need, can be found in a contextual space as well. So I think there's a lot with that. So if you get all of these different variations of loot, you can start to think how to build kind of the environment with them. Environmental storytelling is a big part of level design and environment art. It's a combination of the two to make it there. Obviously, narrative design help it as well, because they set the overall tone of the story, and then we're just helping build the world around the tone that we've been given by them. But by having these different types of loot, you can then place them in areas that help to sell the situation of it, and also embellish what's going on. As I said there in the Donut Diner, there's two bodies look like that of zombies, and I think there's either ammo or gunpowder by them. They both look like they've killed themselves, and it looks like they've used a weapon to take their own lives. As I said earlier, if you're going into there's a great one also in that Donut Diner where if you go to the back of the kitchen, they've got a herb placed down in kind of like a drying rack where you'd place other items and herbs to dry. So that's how they use it for their food, which is really well done. So yeah, give a thought of the context of your loot as well. Don't just place loot. Again, this will also come down to, do you have enough loot to make context? Let's say if you're just constantly getting crates and that's all that you have, you're not gonna be able to help sell that as much. But just have a thought about it, how it can sell the narrative of your world. So I thought that was really nicely done. I really like that. I've been learning a lot more about that as well. So that to me is an important little detail. I know not everyone will notice it, but it does help to ground the world that you're in as well. So yeah, I do recommend doing that one. And well, building on that one is the environmental storytelling. We talked about how we could use loot to help sell, again, the narrative going on. But they really do it well, especially with their blockers. They have some really nice kind of ways to make sure that obviously the city is in very much that of ruins. Because of the fact that, you've got cars piled up, you had police barricades set up, all these people, all these bodies everywhere. All this to help sell that something's gone wrong, that you're in the middle of this catastrophe. One of the ones that I really liked the most is, I believe it's in the staff room in the hospital. But basically, you go in and there's bodies everywhere. Now, this isn't the first time we see bodies. We've seen all these zombies before. But what I like is you can tell what killed them are not from other zombies, these people eating them. There's all these claw marks everywhere. There's a lot more blood than there has been in other areas. That there is, I think it's about like 5 to 6 bodies lay down. So something took them all down very quickly and in high numbers. And it turned out to be this next type of enemy, these kind of like, I don't know, these lizardy creatures. But it's a great way to build up. Eventually you see them a little bit later when you've unlocked stuff for the story. But you see how they're preparing you that, okay, you don't feel safe, and you're aware that this wasn't a zombie that did it, so something else is lurking around. And then they reveal it, and it's a nice little payoff for that. So I really did enjoy seeing that, and that's what we should all be kind of striving for with it. Now, obviously, different games provide different contexts, but this kind of detail that they've put down to really sell what's happened, that, you know, cars have run into each other, they've used them to try to escape different areas, so it all makes sense contextually. So I really did like that. Really good stuff by all the people that worked on their levels. Really good stuff. So if you are looking for any more environmental storytelling methods or good examples, go no further than Resident Evil 3. Alright peeps, obviously there's a lot to talk about with this one. You know, you've got the Nemesis itself, how that works, and other elements too. Obviously you've got that of the quick step, that really helps. I really did like the addition of the quick step. I thought it was really smart. So yeah, some great elements. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed just talking about it. And if you haven't, I recommend picking up Resident Evil 3. It's good fun. It's not the longest game. I think you can probably complete about 5 to 6 hours. I think it took me about, well, I've not finished, but I was sank about 7 into it. But I've just gone around and really took my time. But you're looking around about that element there. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. Like I said, I hope that you're all safe. Make sure that you stay safe, because I don't want this to turn into a zombie apocalypse. That would be even worse. But it's not quite as crazy, the coronavirus, as the T-virus, eh? But yeah, if you do want to get in contact with me, you can do so at the leveldesignlobby@gmail.com. If you want to get more level design bite-sized tips, you can do so, and that is on Twitter, which is @MaxPez. And if you do want to support the Level Design Lobby so we keep bringing on great content, head over to patreon.com/Level Design Lobby. Alright everyone, take it easy, and I'll catch you all next time.